And then I was just like, OMG, what have I done? What have I been doing all these years that I have been trying to avoid eating the one thing that basically in a split second made me feel like 95% better just like that.
All right, guys, welcome back to Carnivore Granny Chats. We have an exciting interview today with Miss Rita, and she's got an amazing story to tell. So I'm just going to hand it over to her, and she's going to tell you about her awesome healing journey. So, how you doing, Rita?
Hi, good, Janice. Nice to finally meet you. Thank you for the interview.
Sure.
So basically, I had COVID twice, and I also had an adverse reaction to an injection that I had to get to keep my job as a healthcare worker. I'm an occupational therapist at a nursing home. And this is where all of my troubles began. It's basically, I developed long COVID, which basically for me presented as autonomic dysfunction or nervous system dysregulation. I developed POTS syndrome, postural orthostatic tachycardia syndrome. So basically, my blood pressure would drop when I would stand up, and then my heart rate would jump 30 beats or more to prevent me from fainting and passing out. I developed a hard time going up a flight of stairs. And I'm a former distance runner, and I used to be a champion runner. And now I can't even go up a flight of stairs. I began losing my hair profusely. I developed a condition called telogen effluvium, which is when after like a virus or a stressor, your hair prematurely switches from the anagen or the growth phase into the telogen or shedding phase. Only for me, instead of going back to normal after 3 months, it kept on going. Like for 9 months, 10 months, it was like still shedding, and that should not be. So I just couldn't figure things out because the virus is now gone. I think I'm kind of recovered from this, and yet I'm still having hair loss. I still can't climb the stairs properly. Still very dizzy. I had about 40 different symptoms. I wrote down some of them, so I'm just going to read off a few. Chronic fatigue syndrome, migraines, post-exertional malaise, constipation, insomnia, intolerance to dietary supplements. I'm also, I have to mention, I am an ex-vegan. And that is a huge part of my story because probably like many meat-based people, you've got a plant-based background. So for me, since I was 14, I was like vegan slash vegetarian. If I did eat animal products, it was once in a while and out of fear. I very much had the notion that if you eat meat or eggs, you're going to clog your arteries, give yourself cancer, give yourself heart disease, put yourself in an early grave. And as a nursing home worker, I had a tremendous fear of disease, and I had a tremendous fear of aging. Because when you're working with patients all day long that are on their last days and they've got all these terrible diseases, it terrifies you. So I was just like, okay, a lot of the longevity influencers right now, like Brian Johnson, I don't know if you ever heard of him, he's vegan. Quite a few others. I think Dr. David Sinclair, he's vegan. And I'm just like, oh my gosh, like if I eat an animal product, I'm probably shortening my lifespan. And yet here I am getting worse and worse, sicker and sicker. And I just didn't quite know what to do. And my family is from Lithuania. And even though I was born here, my parents are both immigrants from Lithuania. And growing up as a kid, I ate traditional Lithuanian foods and a lot of meat, a lot of collagen-based soups and pig's feet and broth and traditional kind of like European farm type of food. And as an adult, I was like, oh no, like that's going to give you cancer. Can't eat that, right? So I had a colleague who's also Lithuanian, and I told her my struggles, and this was like several years ago, and she was like, hey, maybe you need to eat some pork because like we're Lithuanian, like we're really technically supposed to be eating eggs and pork and some dairy, maybe you need to eat some like cultured milk or something. And I was like, oh God, no, like that's going to give me cancer. Like, how dare you say that? And then my boyfriend, he's a physical therapist and he's from the Philippines, he eats so much meat and he subsists on pork. And he got COVID too, and he was fine. I mean, he wasn't losing his hair. He wasn't like home for 2 months like sick. And then I was like, wait a minute, like maybe there is something lacking in my diet. Like even though my blood work was presenting as okay, I was not physically presenting as okay. And then I ran into a channel on YouTube by a young woman that also has POTS syndrome, and her name is Rachel, and she has a channel called Ribeye Rach. I don't know if you have ever seen her channel, but she basically is healing her POTS syndrome with a carnivore diet. And then I ran into some other channels. Mary Ruddick, she's a well-known nutritionist that has reversed her own POTS syndrome through traveling the world and looking at what indigenous cultures are eating. And they're primarily animal-based. And she reversed her own POTS with an animal-based diet. She ate like just chicken soup with the bones and the broth and everything for like a year. She healed her nervous system. Because, POTS and chronic fatigue syndrome is really like a nervous system problem. And then I found a few other practitioners, Dr. Elizabeth Bright, who talks about how women and girls need animal fat. And when I saw that, I was like, what do you mean women and girls need animal fat? Like, doesn't that clog your arteries? And the more I listened to her, the more it made sense because the fat and cholesterol are precursors to all of our hormones. And I also, well, the one blood test that I had that was abnormal was I do have elevated Hashimoto's antibodies. So my thyroid peroxidase antibodies are elevated and my thyroglobulin antibodies are elevated. But my TSH and T3 and T4 were still in range. But that means I have an autoimmune disease, basically. So Dr. Elizabeth Bright was discussing how women need the animal fat basically to have normal levels of thyroid and adrenals and the female sex hormones and all that. And I was just like, oh my gosh, like how come nobody ever tells women this? Like we're all told eat fruits and vegetables, like eat meat as like a little portion, like a little side dish, and everything else should just be plants. And that was what I was doing. And I was thinking, like, okay, if I'm eating the healthiest diet in the world, how come I'm the sickest person that I know? Right? It just didn't make any sense to me. Like the math ain't math in here, you know? So I was just like, all right, like let me start by trying to add some animal foods back into my diet. And at first it was not easy because I really wasn't feeling well. And when I would eat like eggs or something, like my heart rate would speed up and I would kind of feel worse. But then I purchased some grass-fed ground beef and I ate that. And then within minutes, I went up to up the stairs where my bedroom is. And for the first time in a long time, my leg muscles were not burning climbing the stairs. My heart rate felt normal. I wasn't winded. And then I was just like, OMG, what have I done? What have I been doing all these years that I have been trying to avoid eating the one thing that basically in a split second made me feel like 95% better, just like that.
Wow, that
Um,
fast? Wait, I gotta interrupt you. That fast?
it was that fast. And I looked on like Google because like I was thinking, what is it in the meat that like works so instantly? And then, some ideas came up like, oh, it could be iron, but if it was iron, that would take a long time. That would take like a month or so to build up the store. So then it was saying other things that meat has, like the carnitine, the carnosine, other like amino acids that are not found. Creatine, which is also found in only meat. I don't take a creatine supplement. I know some vegans do, but I don't. So whatever the missing link was, it was only found in red meat because I had been eating eggs here and there, and I did not get that same result on the staircase that I did from red meat.
That just blows my mind. Like that just
Oh,
like I've heard so many stories and even like my fibromyalgia was gone in 2 days and I but a few minutes like
a
that's
few minutes.
what a blessing. Oh my gosh. Okay, sorry. Go ahead. Keep going. It was
And
just
actually,
amazing.
like I became very interested in your story because of the fibromyalgia, because chronic fatigue syndrome and POT syndrome are also comorbidities for some fibromyalgia, people. And I have had episodes of kind of like trigger points in my scapula, especially when I'm very stressed. And I used to kind of think I had fibro, even though like I don't, but I would just have like fibro like, days or episodes. So there is also kind of like a stress component and a mind body connection as well. I do have a very stressful job. I work with very sick people. I live in New York City, which is very stressful. I don't have a car right now, so I'm taking buses and subways and public transportation. The weather here sucks. It's very cold. I know, but where you are is very warm, which is a blessing.
Come on out. Come on out.
Yeah, no, I totally wish. Yeah, I hate the cold. But actually, another thing that was instant is I bought some goat's milk and I drank it, and then I went to go outside on a cold winter's day to just run across the street. And for the first time, and I don't know how long, I did not feel freezing cold. Like even though it was like in the 30s outside, I felt like I had to take off my hat, like I wasn't that cold. So I was like, what is it that's like in the goat's milk that revved up my metabolism or something? Like I don't know, because I had been living on soy milk, oat bran, bananas. I had been doing like a big bowl of lentil soup every day for lunch before, with some like whole grain bread dipped in olive oil. I would pour olive oil into the lentil soup, and it was like a massive bowl. So tragically, I looked like I was about 5 months pregnant after I would eat this, even though I'm not. And I couldn't quite understand like where all this bloat is coming from, because aren't lentils like a superfood, and aren't lentils supposed to make you slim down and all that? And then for dinner, I would cook like pasta, some tofu, bunch of vegetables. And I'm just getting more and more pregnant looking like as the days went by, and more dizzy climbing the stairs, and just couldn't figure it out. And it was really just shifting to a more animal based approach. I mean, a full disclaimer, just so you guys all know, like I'm not fully carnivore there yet, but I'm definitely more like animal based, ancestral, that type of thing. Before, my meal would be primarily plants. And if I did eat an animal product, it would usually be like an egg every now and then, or a little bit of fish here and there. But now my meals are like mostly like lamb or like a ribeye, butter, and like a little bit of mashed potato, some organic blueberries. So I kind of like flipped the script on it. So, it was just remarkable. And then
Oh,
also from a hair loss perspective, I began noticing like less hair fall come out in the shower and when I wash, and just like I had cut my bangs, and then like they're kind of like growing back in better, and faster. So I don't have all those bald spots. I mean, I do other things for my hair too, like it's not just diet alone, but the diet definitely is like a component.
yeah.
So
So
it's
what else do you
crazy.
Yeah, that is nuts. So tell me, what else do you do with your hair? So what has helped it come back?
So basically, in the beginning, I really didn't know what to do, because I had several rounds of hair loss. So the first time it self-resolved after the first COVID infection. Like it went away on its own after 3 months, and I thought I was done and over with this. And then when my job told me to do this, that was really kind of like the straw that broke the camel's back. Like everything went downhill after that, because I developed an adverse reaction. And I won't like, say the details of it, but basically I wound up in the hospital. The autonomic dysfunction skyrocketed through the stratosphere. Couldn't walk, couldn't go to work, could barely eat, could barely stand. Heart rate through the roof, on and off fevers. I developed a massive strep infection. And then I needed to take an antibiotic for the strep infection, which I then had an adverse reaction to that, which probably messed up my gut microbiome and all that. And the hair loss, then a month later, I remember it was Valentine's Day. I was kind of just like touching my scalp, and it was really painful and very red. And then within a few days, like most of my hair was just like falling out. And this went on for 9 months. So at first I waited 3 months because I just thought like, okay, last time it went away in 3 months, let me leave it alone and it'll go away. But now I'm 5 months still falling out. So I go to a dermatologist and they say, oh, it's just telogen effluvium. It's self-resolving. It'll go away. But now we're going into 6 months. It's not slowing down at all. Then I go to another dermatologist and they saw a lot of inflammation because my scalp was like literally red and like on fire. So then they were like, oh, we can give you steroid scalp injections. Do you want to try that? And I said, of course, like anything, like I'm desperate, this has to stop. And at first, like it seemed to work, but after about 2 months, like the shedding just came right back. And so it really was not a solution. And you don't really want to be injecting like steroids like forever into your body. Like that's just not healthy. So then I went to another dermatologist after about 8 months of shedding. And then they were like, okay, well, let's run like a hair panel, do some blood work, let's see if you have anything going on. And I did have like the only thing the blood work showed is like the Hashimoto's antibodies, but everything else was like completely normal. Like even my thyroid was still in range. So he just said, I don't know what's wrong with you. Like, good luck. So I just go home and I was like, what the heck? Like, what am I going to do? Like, this is terrible. Um, I really had no idea. I tried Rogaine, but because I have that low blood pressure upon standing, it actually got worse because most people don't know this, but Rogaine was actually invented to treat high blood pressure. So it actually lowers your blood pressure. So if you apply it to your scalp, some of it actually does go systemic. And for me, applying it like twice a day, as the instructions say to do, it did go systemic, and I wound up dropping my blood pressure down to like 80 over 50. And I was like dizzy at work, and I was like almost about to collapse. So I had to throw it out after a week. Couldn't do that. So then I saw like on Instagram some hair influencers with like the most beautiful genetically gifted hair saying that they use like these like hair oils, and I would buy them because you know what, when you're losing your hair, money is no object. Like what's a $30 investment if this is gonna stop my balding? So I would try like anything and it just wasn't really helping. So then I heard about like rosemary and how it can work very similar to minoxidil, but without the side effects. And I didn't want to use anything store bought because I didn't trust it. Because after the whole Rogaine scare with things going systemic, I kind of felt like I don't want to put anything on my skin that I can't also eat. So like now I use tallow on my skin. And I used to spend expensive money on expensive like skin products, but now I don't. I just use tallow because I'm thinking, well, what chemicals are in those skin creams that are now being absorbed into my bloodstream? So on my hair, I just use like flaxseed oil or grapeseed oil, and I make my own hair oil with other natural fresh herbs like rosemary, thyme, mint, ginger. And I just apply that once or twice a week to my scalp and, shampoo it out. I have my favorites that I use for shampoos and conditioners. And I do a lot of red light therapy, which I don't know if you ever heard of that, but I do different red light devices for my hair growth. And along with the diet change, the stress management techniques, getting the right type of exercise, little by little, it began to grow back. It did grow back in gray at first a little bit, but then those grays fell out over time and they just grew back in like my normal color. So it was quite a journey, and I'm still healing. Like I'm still not fully where I want to be with my health journey. But, after 20 years of damage, like you can't reverse it in a short period of time, like everything completely. But I'm definitely in a much better place now than I was 4 years ago, for sure.
Yeah, yeah, your hair is just gorgeous. And
Oh, thank you.
I know I've had like kind of the same issue with my liver because my liver's still healing. And so I've had periods of time where my hair is kind of fallen out and it's scary, it's
Sure.
and
Yeah.
and like my husband doesn't understand. He's like, hey, you're fine, you're fine. I'm like, no, my hair is falling out, So
Yeah.
That's amazing. I'm so glad that, and look how beautiful and long it is. It's just gorgeous.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, another game changer was really, I know it sounds kind of like woo-woo, but the stress reduction, I began to realize just how much stress I was really under. Like, I didn't realize I was living in a state of fight or flight until I began doing, there was like a mind body channel I was looking at on YouTube for people recovering from chronic fatigue syndrome. And I saw a program called DNRS, or a dynamic neural retraining system, and it was all about like how to recover from conditions like chronic fatigue syndrome, POTS syndrome, fibromyalgia, multiple chemical sensitivities, EMF sensitivities, and I kind of thought like, okay, why don't I just try it? Maybe it'll help me or I'll learn something. And one thing I began to realize is like I am a nervous wreck. Like I am entering my job and I feel like the ligers are on my back. Like I guess I'm just so nervous because I have a lot of past trauma. Like I've had traumas at work, like where bosses have screamed at me and I would be crying, or colleagues that are kind of like difficult or bully you. And I used to work at like this one very prestigious nursing home where they're kind of like affiliated now with Hospital for Special Surgery, and the patients are like very kind of like some of them are like former famous people and doctors, and it was like a lot of pressure and plus like a long commute, and I think like my boyfriend was working there, so I just really wanted to look my best and perform my best every single day. And then most recently, I switched to a different job, which at first I loved, but then with the pandemic and with like patients getting COVID, patients getting norovirus, I got norovirus myself, multiple COVID infections. It was a lot of stress. And I just needed to kind of rebalance my autonomic nervous system, which is still not fully there yet. I'm still like a work in progress, but journaling really helped because I began to kind of realize what is it in my life that got me to such a bad state and how can I, reverse some of that.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I'm like making changes little by little and, it's all a work in progress, but, I think I'll get there now that I know what the problems are.
Yeah, for sure. Like, I think we're all just like a work in progress, like we're all just constantly learning and changing and healing and, you know, like learning. Like, the more you learn, I think the more you grow and the more you can heal and things. And, just and having, the the technology in our pocket is
Sure.
it can be two ways. It can be a detriment or it can be an asset. You can use it for, I don't know, Angry Birds or whatever they play now, or you
But
can learn,
Candy Crush.
yeah, yeah, Candy Crush, or you can learn, how to heal yourself and how to be your own advocate and be your own doctor. So that's amazing. That's what an amazing story. I love
Thank
it.
you. And,
Yes.
and also, I would be remiss if I did not mention that for POTS syndrome, or even chronic fatigue syndrome, I haven't ever come across like a recovery story where someone said that a vegan diet was what did it or what healed them. It was usually something more animal based in addition to some sort of mind body work. So it was kind of like a tough pill to swallow because being someone that was plant based for so long and had such a fear of animal foods and such a fear of that, and I was also a compulsive over exerciser. And I didn't quite realize that overtraining and over exercising is actually really bad for your adrenal glands and your nervous system. So I did not know that. I mean, I know it sounds like a very basic thing, but everyone always says like, oh, the more the better, right? So basically, I was like burning the candle at both ends for years without even knowing it. Because like in the US, the culture is very much like this. It's like because where I work, we have a lot of therapists that are from overseas. A lot of them are from Bangladesh or Philippines or India, and a lot of these therapists are getting kind of like a sponsorship. So they're going to get a green card, and they will work. 10 hours, 11 hours, 12 hours, 6 days a week, 7 days a week, no questions asked. And then if some like American woman says, oh, hey, I only want to work 6 or 7 hours a day because I have fatigue issues and dizziness, they're just going to say, well, just don't come back here then. Like we can easily replace you with a big, strong guy from, India that can lift the patient and work 12 hours. Like we don't need you. So that fear was in my mind the whole time because I was like terrified that I would just be like outsourced or replaced. And I used to work 11 hours like earlier on in the pandemic, and I developed a reputation at my facility as like the workhorse. And I would like outperform everybody, but I think it was killing me. I really do. And now I tell everyone, like, hey, I have a limit, 7.5 hours, and that's it. And some of my colleagues would be like, what the heck happened to you? I remember when you used to work 11 hours, 12 hours, like, what the heck happened? And I just say, look, I wish I had the time to still do that, but unfortunately I don't. And I just leave it at that. Like, I don't explain. Like, I don't tell people that, like, I have to take care of my health. I just say, I just don't have the time and leave it at that.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, it's
I was always like a people pleaser. I was always afraid to say no. I was always afraid of what people might think of me. And if my boss said, "Oh, hey, can you work Saturday?" I really didn't want to. Like I'm dying inside. I'm just like in my heart is saying no, but I'm like, yes, okay, be there at 6 a.m. And then I'm like, why did I say that? Like I should have just said I have an appointment. But there was something about me that I just couldn't say no. And now I just tell her, look, I will do one Saturday a month, but if I do that one Saturday, I have to take like a Monday off or a Friday off. I won't do 6 days a week anymore. Just because like I was burning myself out doing that.
yeah. And I think that's part of carnivore too, is like we're like your brain is clearer and you can kind of set boundaries for yourself. Like you're more confident and able to, you know, see that because I'm the same way. I was a special education teacher and I didn't go to my grandparents' funeral, either one of them, because I was afraid, I would get fired or they needed me too much, I had to be there. And so I totally get that, and I think, but since carnivore, I'm realizing, wow, I can say no. I can set boundaries and it's okay. The stress of it and the anxiety has kind of disappeared from that. That's
Yeah.
amazing.
It's like it strengthens up your nervous system and it just makes you feel like stronger, like physically as well as mentally.
Yeah, it's really funny because you don't think of it, it's gonna have that connection, but there really is that mind-body connection. Like you can't separate the two. They're joined, It's
Absolutely. And one
yeah.
of my symptoms before was like severe brain fog. And, now I just feel like that pretty much went away. I mean, for the most part, every now and then here and there, if I didn't sleep well, I might be like a little bit foggy, but it's not nearly as severe as it once was, which is amazing. And I just will never go back to that whole vegan propaganda because, that's really what it was. Like, I watched The Game Changers on Netflix, like the whole vegan documentary, the China study, like a lot of those vegan, channels on YouTube. I even tried raw for a little while, which made me really sick. So now I can't even drink like a green juice. Like, it just makes me sick.
Yeah, no.
Yeah, I was getting migraine headaches a lot, and I was getting like a lot of joint pain, and even now to this day, like the cartilage in my knees is is not good. I think it was just from all those years of being vegan and just not getting the collagen.
Yeah.
So, it's just unfortunate, but I just like I did a lot of damage.
Yeah.
And I just think I don't really believe anyone that says that they feel good on a raw fruit diet. If they say they feel great, they're lying. I do not believe them. I mean,
Yeah.
those blood sugar, fluctuations, like those are not fun.
Yeah, I
And I
don't
don't get that anymore now.
yeah, I wouldn't want to live like that. I like
Oh, no,
steadiness.
terrible. Of course, of
Well,
course.
Rita, thank you so much for joining us and telling us your story. That I'm so thankful that you're feeling better and that you've healed yourself and you're out of pain and all of that. Like it's a miracle. And I'm so glad that you enjoyed the grass-fed ground beef and you were able to run up the stairs. That's amazing. I just love that. Yes, thank you so much for coming on and telling us your story and the importance of journaling. I'm very like pro journaling. I'm sure you've seen. I have right here the journal because I didn't journal, and so
Right,
people learn from my mistakes to
right.
it doesn't
Of
have to
course.
be, it doesn't have to be this one. Just
Well,
write
yeah,
stuff in, you know?
of course, it definitely helps, and to keep track of your journey and all the changes and things you want to tweak and all that.
Yeah,
Absolutely. Thank you
yeah.
so much for having me.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you, and we'll have to have you back on again to tell us more.
Love that. Thank you so much.